Hello, welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I hope things are great for everyone out there. I'm the CEO of Leadershipity and AIM NIL Academy, and I am thrilled today to have my good friend, Christine McCarron. Christine, how are you doing?
Doing awesome, Trent. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I couldn't be better. I feel like almost guilty about it. So it's great to have you on. I have got the queen bee of the Beehive brokerage with me, Boston real estate guru, Christine McCarron. Christine, you're an author of the real estate book, Empower Your Inner Millionaire, which has got to be a fabulous read. I've not read this book yet, but I feel like I do need to empower my inner millionaire for sure. So I'm very interested in reading this book. Then I'm also, you own real estate all over Boston, co-working space. You own some vacation stuff up in New Hampshire in the White Mountains. You are busy. You're a busy woman.
A busy bee.
You're a busy bee. Yeah. Let's talk about the bees. Like, why the bee? Tell me about the history of the bee for the brokerage.
It's, I kind of got the idea when I was walking on the beach, and I always think that's a good idea. And it was like, be kind, be whatever. But really, when I found out, when I guess remembered that the bumblebee technically cannot fly, it's impossible. I said, oh, yeah, that's definitely the name.
So I love this. And there was this old children's book, right, on the bee about this story, right? Like it's incorrect. Like the bee's wings are too small, the body's too big. It's it's actually physically impossible. Like physiologically, this should not work.
Yeah.
Like and so you're like, that's interesting. And so I remember reading
there goes one.
yeah, and there goes one, right? Yeah, they're all around outside of my house right now. Like it's crazy. And so I always love this idea of the bumblebee. And this children's book talked about how, the parents are home and they're in the hive, and the kid's being told, like, hey, you're not supposed to fly. You can't fly. Like, your wings are too small. Your body's too big. Like, you can't do this. Like, and so he goes on this venture home journey through these just trials and tribulations. Like, well, why don't you just fly home, son? Why don't you
It's like running home.
It's
a really long walk, man.
It's a terrible walk. I'm not built for this thing. They're like, yeah, but you can fly, can't you? You've always been able to fly. You've flown every day until today. So what just happened? Like, I don't know. I guess I can fly. Like, so it was such a good book for our kids, and they all loved it. Loved it. So man, you're author, you're a podcaster, 2 podcasts.
Yeah, I love podcasts.
Bringing some knowledge to the world, which I love.
And, selfishly speaking, it's a great way to meet interesting people, which is kind of one of the reasons I do it.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, it is look at me. I'm blessed here. I got, Christine McCarron on. Come on. Like, what? I mean, I get all these 1%ers on my show. It's incredible. Right? Yeah. And I get all the knowledge, right? I mean, it doesn't, if the guests or the audience, they got to download, I always get the information. Like,
right.
Some of them go, oh yeah, I've caught a couple shows. I got to get some more shows. Yeah, you should do that. But I get all of them. So
I got them all.
I feel pressure that I got to get better. Like I dropped worlds and data and information for the last like two and a half years, and like, man, I should be smarter by now. So you've got this business with your brokerage. You got a Women's Touch Home, which is like your redecoration and renovation company. Is that right?
Yeah, a Woman's Touch. I forgot about that business. Yeah, we do some home renovations and stuff.
Yeah, that's good. And then you're a member of the Boston Business Women, Northeastern U grad. That's pretty awesome. And so one thing that most people don't know about the Queen Bee, which actually makes sense though now, is that you do have your private pilot license. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to fly.
Even though I
shouldn't
be able to, but I can.
I shouldn't be able to. I was so inspired by the bee, the bumblebee, and my dad had a plane. So that was like, yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I laughed because I was talking to someone. We were talking about her sister is a pilot, right? And she was like, man, this is so awesome. And she was talking to her dad, and she was talking about, women empowerment, they're not really hiring men, and And she's like, man, sis just keeps growing in the pilot industry. And she goes, I don't think she knows she's a woman. I'm like, yeah, don't tell her. Like,
Exactly. Like the
boom,
bumblebee.
going. Like, no one's gonna tell me what I can and can't do. And I think that's the bumblebee story, right? Like, you can't be told what you can and can't do. I think it's so good. Let's talk a little bit about growing up. You're a New Hampshire kid, pretty rural New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it was sort of like a, boring little town. We had to drive about 25 minutes to get to a grocery store type of thing.
wow. Did you have a McDonald's?
No. Are you kidding? We had one little breakfast restaurant, and that was it.
That was it. So did you grow up thinking, yeah, I'm gonna move to the big city of Boston. I'm gonna set the world on fire, and I'll probably own half of Boston real estate by the end of it, and empower my inner millionaire is what I'm gonna do here. Like,
Eventually I thought that, but it took a long I mean, I just turned 60 last week.
you're
So
great. Come
it
on.
yeah, I was not one of those right out of the womb, winners.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
So, I mean, you have done a lot, and wow, I mean, now you look back on 20-year-old Christine, and a little bit different era, right? They're not saying like, "Oh, hey, Christine, go start buying real estate." Like, go own your own destiny here. Be a guru, because you are. And I'm sure that's not what the world's telling you. Is that fair?
At that age, absolutely not, especially in that town.
Yeah.
There was one road out, get married to a rich guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the advice.
That
Thanks.
was the road out. That was the advice. It's like, wow. Did you go to public school for that advice? Like, what do you get that?
No extra charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was government subsidy. That was the education. So, I mean, we were a good student.
I was an excellent student.
Yeah.
Very good student. Yep.
Yep. So learning was never hard. Like, you enjoyed it.
I did. I always enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I was like, well, like every kid, right? You're smart, so nobody likes you, so you have to dumb it down. Oh, you think you're so smart? No, I don't. Honest, I'm really dumb. But then they
Really,
just like
You-
you.
yeah. Do you look back and think of that, like, I should have handled that differently? And just been like,
Oh my God, yeah.
yeah, like, I'm way smarter than you are. I don't know. I'm wasting my energy and time talking about this stupid stuff with you.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it is, especially I think as a woman, like getting comfortable with actually, I mean, you're not like better than other people, but you're better at some things than other
Yeah.
people. So just, own that. But
Yeah.
it's not that easy, especially,
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
interesting. It's an interesting premise, right? That I think God gives us gifts, right? And obviously some people like, man, I mean, not that they do not practice, right? But you see people play the violin and go, oh my goodness, that's just amazing. And the hard work at it. I got a lot of respect for like the bodybuilding community. I don't really want to do that, but like I know the sacrifice that goes in
yeah,
to look like that, right?
yeah.
And we're often gifted in these things, and it's like I should apologize to people because I'm gifted at this. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm sorry. Like,
You're pretty happy about it.
yeah, and like at the same time, like, hey, math and science may come easy to me, and you can run a 40 in 4.3 seconds. Like, what a gift that is. I'm not going to be doing that, but like,
Right.
that's your gift, and that's awesome. Should you know what? I should slow down. I run too fast. Like, no one ever said that to athletes, right? Like, no, you gotta stop running so fast. Like, this is bad. Like,
Exactly.
so it's very interesting how in one area we just celebrate the differences in the God-given skill and talent, and in another area we almost want to suppress it.
Yeah, it's not cool to be smart. I mean, I think that's still the case in school, unfortunately, that unless you're in a
Really?
special school, it's just not that cool.
Mhm. You know, it's funny because I think from the adult side, I think technology's changed that. I think the tech geek, who's
Yeah, yeah.
making billions, like, dang, how hot is he? Yeah, he hasn't showered for like 2 months, but that guy's worth like $1 billion. Like, and it's like super smart, working his
Yeah.
tail off, focused, just using the gift and creating massive value across all these lines, right? And yet, we're overlooking a lot because we respect that gift. Like
But
like we're
what
overlooking
you
some other
said though
things.
right there, Trent, you said that guy. And that's what it is. Smart guys are okay. It's okay to be a smart guy, and that's
Yeah.
sexy and that's cool. But to be a smart woman, it's a little bit, I still think there's just it's a little bit different. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm not this feminist, you're not going to get lots
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
rah-rah,
Yeah.
but I do think it is a little bit different still for women.
Yeah. No, I think 100%. I can't identify with it, right? Because I've never been in that skin, right? So I can't say I know, but a lot of my clients in leadershipity, like almost 70% of our leaders are women. And so, man, it is, and we go through all the challenges, right? And this challenge has been discussed in numerous conversations, like the real difficulty of even having a good partner that respects, like, yeah, I run this multi-million-dollar operation and I'm doing this and I've got these other things. Everyone goes, whoa, how smart are you? Like, and and you're earning more than I am. Like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I am. Like, and like, oh, we can't go out. Well, why? Like, oh, because your car's nicer than mine. Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, it's so crazy that we get these ideas in our mind and they stay. And even when we know they're wrong, like I have a stigma in my life, Christine, you'll appreciate this. It was like my dad, an accountant, right? I mean, this guy could squeeze blood out of a turnip, like, 4 kids, going at it and trying to create value, and he did a good job of that and raising us, but like gas, when we were kids, or like when I was a kid, Christine, and you're a little older than I am, just slightly, and gas was under $1.
Mhm.
And so it was like my dad would go across town because the gas was 2 cents cheaper. And I'm like,
Is it
man, is
you
is
have
that
to drive there and use gas to get there, right?
yeah, yeah, I was always, like, trying to figure out the valuation the proposition of the value of it, right?
There's a spreadsheet
But
somewhere.
yeah, yeah, right. I should probably create that and make it an app, right? And so, but and I do. I have Gas Buddy on my phone. I'm looking at fuel. I'm almost wrecking my car because I'm figuring out the lowest gas price in my county, right? And it's like, I know it's not going to serve me to drive 5 miles out of my way for 5 cents a gallon at $4 a gallon. Yet it's conditioned. I mean, I still look. I mean, I wonder how much of my life I've actually spent on this because it's significant. It's significant. It's crazy.
Once you start giving your time some value, then that whole equation is gonna go right out the window.
Yeah, right? That's what I need to do. I'm just not valuing my time enough. So, good point. So let's talk about our show is very focused on the quote winners when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. And talk to me about, coming up in this environment, before you're a big success. And I mean, some of the challenges you face. Walk us through one of those that you're in the game and you're like, whoa, I'm not winning here. This is not going well. I thought this was gonna be a good idea, but not so much. And what do you do? Walk us through that.
It's gotta so it has to be about what actually makes you happy,
Yeah.
I started this, I remember one of my little entrepreneurial ventures. That term, serial entrepreneur, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
fits here. I had started an importing company. I used to import stuff from Egypt and Morocco,
Yeah.
and and I wanted to bring back, like, a container load of stuff because the whole
Yeah.
crate thing wasn't working, so I went to SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired
Yep.
Executives.
Yes.
And, we talked the whole thing through, and he said, "Okay, so that's your business plan. What's your backup plan?" And I said, "My what?"
Like a plan B? What are you
A
talking
plan
about?
B? I said, "No, there's no backup plan. This is just gonna work," But and then at a certain point, I decided that the vision I had for it, which was traveling and shopping and, like, having a great time, like, going out in the world and buying stuff, ended up being more like a drudgery where I was just packing boxes and shipping stuff and going to trade shows and all that stuff. So I guess, I mean, at that point, I said, "Okay, I'm not quitting because I can't do this thing. I'm quitting because it just isn't the fun that I thought it was gonna
Yeah.
be." But I
Yeah.
guess that doesn't really answer your question, actually, trying now that I
No,
think
it's
about
good because,
it.
like, in that situation, you're, you envision a different dream, a different
Yeah,
result for sure.
exactly.
And then when you actually get the result of the game that you're playing, you're like, I don't even want to play this game. This isn't the game I signed on for. I was signing on for the World Traveler game and like
Right.
the fun 5-star and buying, high-end buyer stuff. Which, by the
Exactly.
way, tell me, just a quick pivot here. I mean, when the young lady from rural New Hampshire goes home and goes, "Oh yeah, I've got an importing business from Egypt and Morocco." I mean, what are the hometown folks saying when you're like talking about this? Are they just giving you a look like you're
Oh, yeah.
speaking Latin?
So here's something that one of my friends said. "Oh, yeah, I've been to Morocco and Epcot." I said,
Hmm,
"Uh-huh."
like a restaurant?
Because that's equivalent.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I mean, I
I see
guess,
the
to be
correlation.
yeah, they were trying to find a connection because they
Yeah,
just didn't
yeah,
did not
yeah,
it just didn't compute.
yeah. It's funny, right?
Yeah.
It's just funny, right? The things that wow. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the real estate. I mean, you've been in this game a long time and there's a lot of challenges in this thing. And the funny thing is that there's always a narrative in real estate and it's always negative.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird. I mean, like, so I don't know what the stat is. It's like 90% of our millionaires in America like own,
Real
made
estate.
their money in real estate, something like
Yeah.
that. I remember there was a stat thrown out there years ago.
Yeah. Well, even
And
Warren Buffett owns real estate. He doesn't
yeah,
talk
right,
about it,
right.
but
Yeah.
but he does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, he doesn't talk about it much, but he does own it. But
Yeah.
well, and I think part of his asset acquisition on businesses is because how much real estate they own, right?
Right.
Is like, I don't know if
Exactly.
I love the factories, but listen, man, the real estate that they own with all these factories is
Exactly.
amazing. And
Exactly.
so he understands the value of it. And
Yeah.
so here's this business that gets a constant negative connotation. Rates are too high. There's too many people in the market. Things are going to go wrong and I got to fix toilets. I mean, it's just a constant like narrative of whoa, whoa, whoa. And it's just like, wow. And so what's it like being in that every day? Are your people doing it too? Are you getting them to avoid that in some way? Walk us through that.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it is challenging for buyers right now, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
you've got a house at 3% interest and you wanna downsize, and you find out that your mortgage payment at your new house is gonna be more. You're like, "Okay, I'll just stay here," right? So,
Yeah.
obviously, there's no new inventory. I mean, there's very little inventory coming on, and something comes on the market, and everybody's like they're like animals attacking it. So, that
Yeah.
is a thing. But at the end of the day, it's mindset. I mean, I have people say to me who because I help women to become real estate investors, and I'll have them say, "Oh, my grandfather had real estate and, his tenants didn't pay their rent." Okay. And that has
Yeah,
what to do with
that did
you
happen.
right now.
Yeah, that did happen twice, right?
Yeah.
And like, let's go 12 months, over a 40-year period, like, yeah, that happened twice, right? But 40 times 12 over 8 properties, like, come on. This is
Yeah.
not an everyday thing, like, everyone in the property is not paying rent.
Well, and did he know how to, was he just like a guy who just didn't know how to screen tenants and didn't know how to
Yeah,
manage them? It just, was afraid of confrontation or,
yeah,
it doesn't have to be your story. But if you want to find a horror story about real estate, it's not very difficult, right? Everybody
not far
has one.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And you think that is it the fear that keeps people away?
I feel like I mean, Napoleon Hill talks about a fear of failure, but I think at some level we all have a little bit of a fear of success.
Mm,
That that's sort of the other side of that, right? If I succeed, then I could fail.
yeah,
If I never succeed, then I guess I'm just here at perpetual failure, which is
yeah,
not like a step down. So I yeah, I think it's fear uh, of the unknown, of success, and even from my perspective, a lot of my life I battled this fear of being different than everybody else that than my family. Like, oh, I'm going to be smarter than these other kids in school, or, more successful than my family. I'm going to make more money than this person, that person. And just, it's a thing. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, somehow you want to just be part of the group. You don't want to like poke your head out, because then all of a sudden you can get shot, right? Much more easily. Keep yourself firmly ensconced in the foxhole with everybody else.
Is different better?
I think different is a hell of a lot better.
You
But you
do?
have to, yeah. I mean, I like being different. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, I think it's kind of a great thing. But it's that I did not feel that way as a young person.
I do feel like we've started, I don't know if we're there yet, but I think we've started to embrace differences in a different way that seems more positive than it used to be. Because when I was a kid, like different was whoa, like
Yeah.
they're different, like, and uh we're just so filled with a lack of knowledge of different, right? Like, oh my gosh, you have to use a wheelchair to go to school? Like, that's different. Like, that scares me. And I don't know anything about that. And so we're uneasy, right? Like, we don't celebrate that difference.
Right.
We're uneasy about it. And man, I wish people would lean into it more and celebrate the
Well,
differences
and be
more.
curious. I mean,
Yeah.
and you don't
Walt
like,
Whitman, come on.
somebody's different, and you think, "Oh, should I ask them about this difference? You have a third eye. What's that like?" Like,
Yeah.
should I pretend I don't see that third eye? Should
Yeah.
I you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. It should be okay to ask people, like, you say that you're they instead of him or her. What does that feel like? How does that come across? Because people are just like, "Oh, weirdo," like, "They're not like me. Oh, get away," and really, I think if we, like, talk to people, and then you can just, I don't know, it makes you better, more
Yeah.
interesting yourself, to have those experiences, but
Yeah, I really feel that, like, as a kid meaning, I don't know what that is, like, if that's 16 to
last
26.
week.
I don't know the age range, but, like, maybe to 40. Like, but, like, I really feel like I was that person, like, I was the Walt Whitman of, like, I wasn't curious, I was judgmental,
Yeah,
and I wasn't interested to learn more. I knew that, someone wasn't like me, and that made me a little uneasy, and the energy and time to actually take that effort and be curious about it and lean into that.
yeah.
Man, I just didn't know how to do that well, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think that I learned that along the way, and it's a very powerful quote. Um, Real quick, you need a battery change?
Yeah, can you just give me 1 sec?
Yeah, sure. Do that. I
Right.
want to talk a little bit about confidence when you come back. So I'm going to start in on that while you're doing it.
Oh,
While you're doing a
perfect, okay.
battery change.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
go ahead. So, one of the things that both Christine and I talked about was this battle in leadership on confidence versus arrogance, and how that plays in a role as a leader and the challenges that come with it. And I was faced with that adversity as a young guy and in sports, and I really felt like I'd studied a lot of self-talk and how to improve myself, and just going right back to the children's book of I think I think I can, and a little engine that could, and how important that self-talk became, because I was being overrun in myself as a young athlete with all the negative people telling me what I can't do. I was caught in the bumblebee. I was being told what I can't do, and you're not supposed to be able to hit that high average, and you shouldn't be stealing this many bases. Like, and I'm like going, man, like, but I was also being told, like, from people who didn't really have knowledge about the top level, that I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't strong enough, or I wasn't this. And I mean, I'm still developing as a 14, 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I was already being kind of withheld, like the bumblebee, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do that. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that. People that play at that level. Don't look like you. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to look like 14 forever. Like,
Right.
I'm 14, man. I know I'm 5'1" and, 100 pounds dripping wet. Like, but I don't think I'm going to be that forever. I'm going to be a whole 5'6", 175. I'm going to be huge. Like,
Look out.
never really got to that 6'6". I knew that wasn't happening, looking at my parents, but, yeah, but there was that where that self-talk really helped, and it really got me going, and it really got me on a way of, and I think the confidence didn't come from the self-talk. The confidence came that when I started doing the reps, my fears went away. Like, the worst thing that could happen was I failed, and I didn't fail much. Like, it worked, and we figured out a way to do stuff, and we tried stuff. And I kept like applying this theory over everything, over we try risky stuff in the song and dance troupe, the Glee Club. I was in Glee Club, right? And we try risky stuff, see how it works out. Like, there's a couple of nights we kind of bombed on stage. It didn't go great, right? But like, nobody died. Like, yeah, all right, that didn't go as well as we thought. I was still utterly scared of the solos and stuff like that. But going into a group and some strength in numbers. But I do remember, facing that time when kids were coming to me going like, man, you are so arrogant. I'm like, man, that is not how I wanted to be perceived.
Yeah.
But I did feel like, I was just totally, risk-free. I didn't care. I was like, so far things have improved out. Everything I thought was going to happen never happens. And so I developed this skin and this tolerance for risk, because it turned out like most of the risk was in my mind. It wasn't really real risk of happening. And there's definitely a risk of things going wrong. But when I really looked at it, if I had to run the numbers, it was a 3 to 5% chance. It wasn't like, this is a 95% chance that, you're going to fall off the building. Like, well, I'm inside the building. I don't think I'm going to fall off it. Like, and so, yes, it could happen if I was out on the roof doing things, walking the edge, the risk goes up. Right. But I'm not planning on that. So, I think I'm okay. And so, talk to me a little bit about, as people see this confidence in you, like they recognize like you've taken some things on that probably most people aren't willing to do. And it hasn't always gone perfect, right? It hasn't been like everything like, oh yeah, every company I start, it's like sunshine and rainbows, right? Like, just a straight, like, hockey stick chart of growth and development and money, right? So talk to us about that confidence quotient and what you learned along the way.
Well, what you're saying, Trent, is exactly the way it is. Like, that's how confidence develops. You set a goal and you achieve it. You set a goal and you achieve it. And you're like, hey, you get a little momentum going, and it becomes just a way of life. It becomes intoxicating, and you just want to keep, we're not supposed to just like say, okay, did it. It's like, what's next? What's next? What's next? So we're always looking at what's next. And that's the way the way we're designed. That's the way we're built. But I mean, you're talking about the difference between arrogance and confidence. I think some of that's maturity. You just like, you realize that I don't need everybody else to understand what I am or what I'm doing or whatever. I just need to, I need it to be, as long as I know that I'm good at this thing, then it's okay. But sorry, I lost the track of your question there for a second.
Yeah, I think that like I think what you're saying is right on. But I think let's kind of break into that, like the perception. If you internalize that, if I know I'm confident, do I really care what other people think if they think I'm arrogant? And we talked a little bit about this offline. Is there's certain people in the media, politicians in the world, like, they don't fit people's narrative, because I don't think they give a rip about our narrative, like what we think of them, right? And it's kind of like, hey man, maybe you should care what I think, and like, I really don't give a rip, like, and it comes off that way. And I think people are hurt that they don't care.
Yeah. But you can't care. You can't care. That's the whole thing. If I could make you happy, then maybe this other person's going to be unhappy. And then, but right. The word that I think we're all kind of talking around is selfish. And I happen to think selfishness is like the key to success. If I can make myself happy, if I can, really, because as soon as you waste so much energy trying to like make sure this one likes you and that one likes you, and that, you know, oh, what if somebody doesn't like when I develop, like, so the Beehive is my co-working space, right? The Beehive community. When I
What's it called?
designed the space, sorry,
What's it called?
Beehive community.
Nice. And this is
That's
where in Boston? Little
It's
shout
actually
out.
in Tingsboro, so it's like on the New Hampshire, it's Greater Lowell, New Hampshire border kind of thing.
Okay. Nice.
But yeah, so it's the Beehive community, and I designed it to be a place that I want to hang out. And I just figure that'll be great because then I'll attract people like me. People who want a different kind
Yeah.
of space, who don't
Yeah.
want like a feng shui space, who think it's too like touchy-feely. Hey, stay home. I don't think I'll like you anyway. So just stay home and we'll be good, you know?
Yeah.
But you know, what if I had completely diluted my focus and said, "Oh, I have to have this for this kind of person and this for this kind of person." And then, like, I mean, it'd be in development for the rest of its life.
Yeah.
You just have to be like, what do I want? What's going to serve me? And then, right, it's like what we were talking about. Put your own face mask on, your own air mask before you help other people, because you can't help other people unless you're already breathing and whole, and right. Feed yourself first. That used to be my motto because I'm more about food than I am about air, strangely.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hell
feed
with air.
yourself first, and
Please,
then
doctor.
and then you give what you give freely, right? If
Yeah.
I'm full, like, hey, yeah, you can have the rest, no problem. But if
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to give it to you, and then I want you to share back with me, well, you didn't give me any of your food. You know what I mean? Like, I'm full, I'm happy, I'm giving to you completely freely, and I just feel like that's more healthy.
Yeah. It's a very interesting, you know, concept here because there's so much out. I mean, so much, Christine, about the selfless leader. The selfless. I'm a selfless leader.
I don't think you can be a
And
selfless
you know, I
leader.
hear the term a ton, right? I've never used it because I don't understand it, I guess. And that's not to say that I'm not selfless, that I don't think of others. That's not to say that. I have a lot of responsibility. And if all of a sudden I stop doing and managing my responsibility, which is a full-time job for sure,
Yeah,
and plus, there's a lot of things that happen and would go bad for a lot of other people.
yeah,
And that's not really fair, right? Like, so I've got to own that too. And you know, I always think about, like, you know, as a leader, we talk about with a lot of our groups, you know, when you have 200 employees in your organization, you're making decisions for 800.
yeah,
Because when you have an organization, primarily, you have a breadwinner, whoever is that, like, primary income for a household,
yeah,
works at this professional establishment, and then they have 2.2 kids and a spouse or a significant, and it's like it's usually a house of 4. And so all of a sudden, if that goes away, there are all sorts of people impacted.
yeah,
And so you have to think as a leader, like, hey, how does this serve everyone involved? And yeah, and sometimes me serving everyone involved may look like me serving me first, but maybe that's what has to happen to keep everything going. And I don't think people always get that.
I honestly think the only way you can be a selfless leader is if that's where your self-esteem comes from, right? If it makes you feel good to believe that you're like, I think we do this with our kids, right? We're like, I'm doing this because I want for my kids. I'm doing this for the good of my kids
Yeah.
because, right? The other side of it, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to respect myself as a parent. So it always comes back to us. It's just, you just have to admit it.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge because I think there's typically a parent in any equation that, in my opinion, and this might be under my own roof, I'm not sure, like, you know, right, is that one's, I think, giving too much. And I have been charged with being relatively harsh on my kids, right? And I'm like, I just grew up where my parents didn't helicopter, they didn't hover, and started working at 10 years old. And so, you know, I believe in, you know, I love Lincoln's quote, right? Lincoln's like, don't ever do something for somebody that they can do themselves. You are not helping them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like that cutoff for me, is like when you get to about 14 years old, about eighth, ninth grade, or grade 8, grade 9, you're like a little young adult. You should be able to do about 90% of the things on your own, and then nothing wrong with asking Chris for help. Nothing wrong with getting some, assistance here and there when you need it. But like, hey, can you make dinner for me? Hey, can you put gas in my car? Like, what?
I know.
No. Like,
I know.
no, like you gotta be part, like, hey, we will make a dinner, and as a family, you'll be there on the time. And if you're not, you're on your own. Like, that's just to be clear, like, this is the dinner time, you're not there, so you're on your own. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I see it, just the catering is, I don't think it's serving people.
It's you're taking away their opportunity to set a goal and achieve it, right? They're not gonna get their self-esteem, they're not gonna get their confidence if you're just doing everything for them because it's learned helplessness.
Yeah. Can you imagine walking into, Mother of the Year, who is just like prideful about how well the home's run, how well I care for my kids, and saying to someone, I think you're taking away your kid's ability to have self-confidence and attain and achieve goals in their life. Because that's a big takeaway, right? I mean, that is
There's tons of statistics about, like, kids who inherit money, you
yeah,
know, kids who are things are done for them, that they just don't have they just I don't wanna say they're losers, but they just don't have that opportunity to
yeah.
really figure out who they are, what they're all about. I mean,
Well, and I think, one of the things that really serves in this is that, I've always said confidence is about preparation, prep and reps, repetition, preparation, repetition, prep and reps. And so, getting someone ready for what's about to happen, you're modeling that. There's a lot of different ways. They go to school, they study, there's different things you do that. And if you don't know, you go to YouTube and somebody shows you how to do it, right? Which is awesome. I
exactly.
never thought YouTube was going to be that, by the way. Like, I thought YouTube was like an entertaining video, and now
I
it's like
know, but it's fantastic.
I can learn how to like change an axle on my car apparently. And so not that I'm going to do it probably, but like I could. And so it's like amazing what's out there for information, and yet we are taking that opportunity for prep and reps away, especially the reps.
Yeah,
And then we're going, wow, I don't know why you don't have any confidence in this.
exactly. I don't know why you're so arrogant because you think right? I mean, that's where I think
Yeah.
arrogant comes from because they really deep down don't know whether they can do it. They just feel entitled. Like,
Yeah.
"Well, everyone's always giving me stuff, and so you have to give me stuff too." Like,
Yeah.
"No."
No, no, I don't. Like, that's not how it works.
Well, and then
But
you find that place of adversity and you have absolutely no skills to deal with it.
zero,
Nothing.
zero.
I mean,
And
you're totally helpless.
you've got to have an absolute like this. I don't know if this freaks you out. It freaks me out all the time. I mean, it's 60 years of age. By the way, you look awesome. It's so
Thank
incredible.
you.
And when you meet like 16-year-old youths, a young lady from a rural community comes in, you meet her, and you're like, man, this thing has got so much resource and data to it. And someone goes, well, I don't know how I'd find my way down the 2 blocks to this other place. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get there. And you're like,
Yeah.
what? Like, well, it starts like the real estate. Well, it's raining. Well, the cabs are, not out anymore. Well, I don't know if I have an Uber account.
I know.
Well, and it just keeps going on in these things, and you're looking at like going, oh my gosh, if I'd had this stuff at 16, I'd probably own
Yeah.
the moon. I don't know,
Kidding,
like,
right?
like,
I remember one time I was at the SCORE office, I was telling you about my experience with SCORE. I was at the office and the guy who I was talking to, my mentor was also on the switchboard that day. And somebody calls in and they're like, how do I get there? How do I? And he's like giving them stuff. And I said, just tell them don't bother because you cannot be an entrepreneur if you can't even find the SCORE office.
yeah, yeah.
Forget it. Just give it up.
That
Stay
that's like
home.
pre-qualifier number one. If you can't get
Exactly.
here, you don't belong here, right? Like,
Yeah, you don't belong. If you
well,
can't figure out your way to get to an address that you already have, it's just not in it for you. Forget it.
yeah. So let's talk quickly about. I mean, this is great about. I have a lot of experience around three communities: pro athletes, entrepreneurs, and high level military personnel, and special forces, things like that.
Yep.
And man, these people are the absolute most resolute, challenge solvers that you'll ever meet in your life. Like I mean, you, you know, first of all, problem's not even a factor, right? It's all just challenge because they
Right.
just hear a challenge and they perk up like,
It's fun.
oh my gosh, there's going to be a challenge. What do we need to do? Like,
Yeah.
like, and it's an immediate reaction. It's visceral, it's physical,
Yeah.
and they're almost driven by it. And so what do you see out there in your community? You got this co-working space, people are going to come in. I love this qualifier. I think score if you're out there listening, that's a qualifier. If they cannot find your building and office, they are not allowed to actually come into score and get any government assistance for that. Okay, like zero. Like shut them down, turn them
Right
away.
there.
It's not okay.
Yeah. Um, so it's interesting because people have like when I was going to Egypt, right? You go to Egypt and it's a little bit, by myself, right? Because I would do
Yeah.
my little import thing. And there's armed guards with these big machine guns on every
Yep.
block and whatever.
Not
And
uncommon.
people say, how can aren't you afraid to go there? Like, dude, I'm afraid not to do stuff. I'm way more afraid not to do things, like to miss out. I'm like, my FOMO is way bigger than any sort of logical
Yeah.
fear of people with machine guns. It's just
Yeah.
like, no, problems. That's what, like, when you talk about, oh, there's a problem, there's a challenge. It's like you just get excited, your blood
Yeah.
is just like, yeah. So people, oh, oh, there's nothing, there's no inventory, and my grandfather lost his real estate, and somebody, my cousin's father's brother's sister's cousin had this bad experience, so I'm just gonna stay home. Like, that shit makes me mental. Like, come on. Come on, get excited, like find something that you're afraid to do and just go do it because it's
Yeah.
awesome, it's invigorating.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about the invigorating part is facing a discomfort and actually getting comfortable in it, right? Where you actually find out like, whoa, this isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And traveling internationally that you bring up is such a good example of I remember being in like South America and of course, like you said, armed guards everywhere, which by the way made me feel very safe. I thought, man, if someone goes off, like this dude's this woman right over here is gonna gun somebody down. Like she's got a AK-47 right there.
No
Like I'm
problem.
not worried about it here because I'm not gonna be the one acting out, right? So like
Right,
she's not gonna
exactly.
like to be pointed at me. And so, I thought like that's good for me. And so I actually had a level of comfort in that as I travel. And I remember talking to his family, rural Ecuador, and I remember just like, oh my gosh, New York City, I would never go there. Like I saw those planes go into the buildings, like that place is scary. And I was like, I'm in New York all the time. Like, I don't think like that. But yet that's a great perspective. Like,
Yeah,
if you're sitting in there in rural Ecuador and you don't even see buildings that are obviously 100 stories tall, I
right.
mean, it's bizarre and it's a discomfort. It's what we don't know. And so when we really talk about this fear, a lot of it's coming down to just our lack of knowledge and our willingness to go and find out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just go to Canada. Like, oh, everybody in the United States has a gun. I mean, it's dangerous there, right?
I know.
Everybody's got a gun. Like, well, maybe they do, but they're not bothering me. So I'm just right. I mean, it's very
Yeah,
easy to
it's so
go somewhere
funny.
and
It's so funny how people read a story and make an assumption on it, right? And like this journalist has to know everything, right? Like, well,
exactly.
they've done a bunch of research and everyone in America actually owns a gun. Like, don't think there's 330 million guns here. Like, it's an interesting concept of what we build up in our mind to be truth
Yeah.
and and I guess what we choose to let in. And as you keep progressing here on your shows and what you're teaching people, what do you think is one of the most important lessons right now for leaders out there from your show? I know you teach a lot on women and empowering them and creating wealth, which is so important. I mean, you're talking about the empowerment of the inner millionaire a lot, and that's obviously with the book. So you've got a lot of knowledge of out there and going for it. What do you tell people today that are sitting on the sidelines?
I mean, I don't want to say like just do it because that's already been said, but
Yeah, and Nike would consider that an infringement.
I think they would. I think they would. But that is kind of what it boils down to. It's like figure out here's a place to start. Write your obituary. How do you want to be remembered? And then just work backwards. Like, do you want
Yeah.
to be remembered? Like, here's somebody who hoped they could do something and never got around to it. Oh, that's a great one. How about, you know what I mean? Or do you want to be remembered as a person who accomplish something, who did something, and then figure out what do I need to do this afternoon that is going to allow me to be that person who I want to be when I, what I want people to say about me when I'm gone. I mean, it's kind of, I know it's been said and whatever, but you really do need to think about the end and not just like the end, like, oh, I'm going to have X amount of money, right? There's a big focus on, I'm going to have this much money. No,
Yeah.
think about it's because it's right. It's who you become in the process. Whether or not you ever climb the mountain, you're going to get stronger and you're going to, just training for that marathon is going to make you a better person, even if you don't win, right? It's just do it. I mean, I guess that just keeps coming up. That's what it's
Yeah.
like.
Well, I love the idea, and I hadn't thought about the obit. It's really good. I do have a lot of people write 2 things, like, really very distinctly what their goal is, what they really, really want, like what they've been dreaming about. Like, what have you been dreaming about, right? And I want you to be as vivid as you can on that dream of exactly how it's going to look when you get there. And that's hard. That's a hard lesson for people
Yeah.
to actually really start sitting down. That's not done in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so when people spend a couple weeks at that and really get tight on that, you're like, did it. I feel like I probably much like you felt like I wrote my book. Like, I'm finished. Like, but yet now that it's there, it's time to do the work. And
Yeah.
and like, how do we make that a reality? And it's very easy to back into that. In my opinion, it's very easy to back into that. And if I don't know how to back into that, someone else does. Like, someone
Exactly.
has probably done it before. And like, this is where mentoring takes on. And this is
Yeah.
where you get coaching and you get people come around you that will help hold you accountable to
Yeah.
that standard that you're going for. And it's amazing what can happen on these little steps every day. But people, I'm not a very good sideline person.
Yeah.
I'm not a very good fan. I like to play, like I like to, and when I don't play, I'm like, hey, Coach McCarron, why am I not playing? Like, I should be playing. Like, I'm better than
I'm
somebody
better than
here,
that
right?
guy. Come
Like,
on.
yeah, how do I get on the field? How do I get on the court? How do I get in the game? And I'm okay that maybe I'm not ready to be in the game today. And I respect Coach McCarron because you told me that, right? But show me what I need to do to be ready to be in the game, because I'll do it
Yeah.
if you show me, because I just can't watch anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I just got to get in there.
But you've
And
got but somebody's sitting next to you, and in the back of their mind, they're going, "Oh, like, what happens if he picks me? What if I don't do a good job? What if I
yeah,
can't, what if I, fumble? And what if this happens?
yeah,
And, blah, blah, and then I could break my kneecap and, I could get an injury. And then what's going to happen? I'll never make any more money and I'll have to retire at 24. And right. So it's all about what's going on right here.
yeah. No, and I think that is right now always. I think that tugs a little bit at everybody
Yeah.
at some point, but I love the old quote, right? I spent a lifetime worrying. I spent 90% of my life worrying about things that never happened,
Right.
right? And I was like, man, like, we run these things in our minds, and like, man, like, I don't think you're gonna bust your kneecap because you got in, like, like, but like, I appreciate the concern. Like, it's not that it couldn't happen, and there is maybe I don't know, maybe a 0.5% of a chance. I don't know if it's that high, but
Yeah.
like, it has happened before. And so it's back to your real estate. Hey, remember that one time when my sister's uncle's mailman's cousin's sister had that thing go bad in real estate? Like, yeah, dangerous. It's dangerous.
Dangerous.
I'm scared of it.
Exactly. Never mind all the millions of people who have made a shit ton of money doing
Yeah.
it. Forget about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
That's amazing.
also, I mean, I don't want to, like, again, I'm not a feminist. I'm not doing like the big rah thing, but a woman who's taken a lot of her life and put her kids as a priority. And now they're at a point, the kids are gone and you're like sort of empty nesting and you're like, okay, what am I going to do now? Helping people to bridge the gap between where they are now and the dreams they had when they were younger. I mean, maybe they don't look exactly the same, but that person who had those goals and dreams is still in there.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, it's easier, I think, for women to kind of bury those dreams a little bit
Mhm.
and then be thinking like, oh, I just don't, all I ever wanted to be was a good mother. But probably that's not true. Probably there were some other things that were important to you at one time, and just plug back into that and get energized again. I don't know. I just feel like,
Well, I love that. I love that suggestion for anyone out there who's done that, and I think it's really admirable that some. And I have admiration for someone who said, "Hey, these are my things. I'm putting a pause on that right now. I'm gonna hit the pause button on that. I'm gonna do this 20-year stint. I got to raise these kids. I got a role that became a higher priority for me and
yeah,
for this family, and I got a lot of admiration for that.
yeah,
And obviously, both sexes have done that, but this is definitely more side on the women's side,
yeah,
and so." Boom, now all of a sudden, okay, I unpause. Like
yeah,
it's time to come back and look at this again. And it may look different. And that's okay. Like
yeah.
it doesn't have to be like, yeah, when I was 17, I really wanted to be Barbie,
I want to
actually.
be a
Like,
ballerina.
well,
Okay.
the movie's out. So there you go. So but you can go back and figure out what it is that really drives you and stirs your heart and gets you going. Because I think, you know the difference between people that are living and the people that are just
Yeah.
they're just
Just
existing.
ticking the clock. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like
and
this
it's a
Meatloaf
little
song,
scary.
right? You're only
The
killing
what?
time,
It's a
but it'll kill
Meatloaf
you
song?
right back, right? You know that Meatloaf song? He says, "You're only killing time, and it'll kill you right back."
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Meatloaf,
it's like
such an American poet. Like, who knew that Meatloaf knew so much? I mean,
right?
like and probably he's way better now since he just passed, right? So,
He's really profound now.
Paradise by the Dashboard Light, who knew, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
so, that's awesome. Well, Christine, tell the audience where they can find you.
Okay. Well, I'm here in Tingsboro. No, the easiest way is just chrismccarron.com. Keep it simple. That's the website that'll, allow you to eventually find your way to everywhere else. And yeah, and I'm
Okay.
on, LinkedIn and Facebook and every other social
Same
media thing.
thing,
But
all under Christmas Karen?
yeah, it's either Chris McCarron or Boston Ari Guru. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not consistent. There's some stuff out there with Beehive.
You'll
I have
find it.
what is it? I have a labeling, a branding issue. But
Yeah, I
luckily,
appreciate that. I
chrismccarron.com,
appreciate that from
start there.
multiple brand owners, how challenging that is, right?
Yeah.
See, my title here is like, it's a little war and peace here on my titles. Branding issues. I should just write that. Coach Trent Clark, branding issues. So, yeah, so I really appreciate that. So, Chris, thank you so much.
I'm
It was
trying. It's been a
fabulous to have
real
the
pleasure
queen bee
talking
on.
to you.
It's not every day I get the queen bee, you
Right?
know? Right? So great time joining us on the Winners Find a Way show. Chris McCarron, Queen Bee of the Beehive brokerage, and just thrilled to pick up her book, Empower Your Inner Millionaire. Love that.
Hey,
Check
I'm
out
gonna
her
copyright it.
podcasts. Multiple. Oh, boom! There it is.
Yeah,
Empower
thanks,
Your
sweetie.
Inner Millionaire. I love it.
Yeah.
What's on the bottom?
A Woman's Guide to Financial Independence Through Real Estate Investing. Sorry, I got the
Boom.
lights are in the way, but
No, it's all
there you
right.
go.
Good.
Yeah.
It's just a little yellow
And
house.
yeah, it's a house sitting on a stack of money.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I
All right,
like
see,
that
there you
part.
go, women.
There
If
you
you
go.
want a house sitting on a stack of money, pick up this book because Christian, you basically assure it, right? Like it's not a guarantee, but it's almost a guarantee. So
Exactly.
yeah. So yep, check out our podcast. Also, more great information on both of those. So
Thanks.
until next time on the Winners Find a Way show, check us out every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern and 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We'll see you again.
Thanks, Trent. It's been a pleasure.